Greetings one and all, this is Lloyd Brown and welcome social media family to Lloyd Brown Music. And on today's episode of Plugin of the Week, brought to you by the guys at Soundfingers, I'm going to present to you two plugins. One is free and one is paid. The free plugin, namely the Dub SPL4, and the paid plugin, which is the Heritage Organ. Let's get into it. Lloyd Brown Plugin of the Week. And here we are, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, brothers and sisters, in the laboratory where I've got actually two sessions within the one session, just to show the features of both the Soundfingers plugins I'm going to feature today. First and foremost, I'm going to feature the free plugin, which is called the Dub SPL4, which is by way of a four-way audio splitter. It's more or less like a four filter splitter, for want of a better phrase. Before we actually go into the plugin and the workings of the plugin, I'm going to show you the piece of audio that I'm going to be affecting and effecting with the plugin involved. So I've got a little loop here. And that's pretty much the dry audio signal that you're hearing right now. So let's just go into the editing section in my session. And as you can see, I have got the Dub SPL4 already installed here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually keep the EQ open here. And as you can see, this is what the plugin basically looks like. It's a very easy plugin to navigate because all it does, it just basically splits the audio signal into four frequencies, and you can customize the frequencies by way of high pass filter and low pass filter globally across your four frequency ranges. All right, so you've got the low frequency, low mid frequency, low high frequency, and high frequencies. The high pass filter and the low pass filter are more or less global controls for that, and you have high Q buttons as well for the high pass filter and the low pass filter. Just to explain what the high Q is, as you can see on my Cubase EQ, you have got the Q buttons right here down the bottom here. So if I was to literally just click on a frequency and gain it, what you see here is basically the Q. So the peak, or indeed the trough that you create, is more or less the Q right here. And the Q button on the EQ, it widens it or it thins it. See, when I turn it left, it widens it. As I turn it right, it thins it. So that particular frequency is going to be the frequency that's going to be affected and effected somewhat. So if there's a troublesome bit of audio you're hearing within the wave file, within the EQ section here, that you want to basically take out, you basically bring the Q down. You thin it and you bring the Q down. If you want to enhance a frequency you're not hearing much of, you just do the complete opposite, filtering it out that way. So basically the high Q, thinned out Q sections of the EQ. That's the best way I can really explain it. Let's just play the loop again and see what spectrum we have on it. All right, so that's basically the spectrum. So I can affect the global spectrum by way of just giving it the high pass and the low pass filter. So what the high pass filter would be doing is essentially what any EQ on your door can do. If I click on here, this is basically giving me the high pass filter. If I go on the right hand side here, that will give me the low pass filter. This is for Cubase. I don't know how it would look or function in any other door. If you don't really want to use that and you want to kind of just leave the signal flat, as it were, in your EQ of your door, you can do so and then just effect the frequencies by using an external third party. There's no hard fast rule as to using this above your EQ, but just for flexibility by way of automation without affecting too greatly the signal that's coming through in here. let's just get into some settings and show you how the thing basically works. So the high pass filter, the low pass filter, you more or less get, all right? Now, you can literally have on all 4 bands if you want, or you can literally just switch 1, 2, or 3 off and just have the band of choice, the frequency of choice that you can also affect with a high pass filter and a low pass filter. If you just basically just turn all of these, you won't get any sound at all. So let me just demonstrate by way of just playing the loop. So I'm going to turn the switches on one by one. Okay, so basically you don't hear nothing. So if you want to get a certain frequency out of the audio source that I'm playing right now, you can do so by just clicking on any band you want. And that's pretty much the workings of it. Now, at this point, I just want to say that my only small critique is that in the UK, right, when we switch on light switches and things like that, to switch it on, you basically switch it down. And to turn it off, you basically switch it up. But the way how it's looking, it's showing by the red light that the frequency is off. And that's somewhat a little bit misleading. If you have the switches up, and you have the red lights basically on, it shows that it's on. By having the switches down and the red lights on, you should be able to hear the complete signal. That is what logically comes to mind when I'm switching something on and off. Do you know what I mean? So this is what I'm supposed to hear with the switches down and the red lights on. And this is what I'm supposed to hear with the red lights off and the switches up, which is nothing at all. It's a minor thing, but for me, it's a little less confusing. It all depends on where you are in the world and how your light switches basically function, or how your switches on your machinery basically works, or how your equipment works. But that's a minor oversight. I think once you kind of get used to how the thing looks, when and how it functions, it will just make complete sense and it will just become tactile for you to use. But that's, like I said, it's just a small thing with me. Anyway, so let's get into the filtration of the thing. All right, so here we go. So we haven't got anything, so we're just going to basically just turn on each frequency. That's a low frequency. Put in the low mid frequency. Take out the low frequency. Put in the low high frequency. Turn on the high frequency. So you got that chip coming through. If you don't want that, okay, so you got the workings basically, all right? So with the high Q switches on the high pass filter and the high Q on the low pass filter, very easy controls. It just basically controls the high pass filter and the low pass filter globally within the plugin. All right, so let's just get into that. And now the low pass filter. And that's pretty much it. And to affect it even further, you can basically turn on the high Q switch on each, and that will kind of, I think it would narrow the Q field within your frequency range. So let's just play that. Yeah, as I suspected, yeah, that's exactly what it does. and the low pass. And that in essence kind of gives it a little bit more resonance as well, because you're narrowing the Q field in the frequency range. It just gives that a little bit more resonance as opposed to just giving the high pass and the low pass and kind of tempering the frequency, the global frequency that way. All right, so there's plenty to do. All right, so just to make it a little bit more interesting, let me just add a little drum and flam to it just to show what you can do within the plugin itself. And the good thing is that you don't really just have to put it on a instrument track. You can put it on the master bus as well, and you can dub out to your heart's content. So let's just play with that a little bit right now and see what we got. So the frequency is much softer now with the low pass and the high pass. I'm going to put on the high Q again. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, brothers and sisters, that is basically it. It is the Dub SPL4 4-way audio splitter. Perfect for dub music, reggae music, any kind of music, any genre where you just want certain frequencies off your audio source to be featured. There's a lot of them about, but I think for me this one is very tactile for me to use. The only criticism is basically the position of the on and off switches and the lights being on and off combination that can be refined somewhat. You know, that's just a minor thing, but for me, once that is basically done, then it's all golden. Oh, another thing I need to mention as well is that another feature that I would like to see on this, and I know it's a free plugin, and sometimes with free plugins there are limitations, and that's why the plugin is available for free. But I would love to see MIDI CC learn on these knobs here. I mean, not necessarily on the manual switches, but on the rotary switches it would be great to have MIDI CC learn. The good thing about it for the moment is that if you have got a mouse with a center scroll wheel, you can literally just work it that way. So as you can see, I'm not moving the cursor, but I'm actually turning the cursor wheel on my mouse, and I can basically work it that way. Now, it's a decent compromise to have that as well, and then go into your automation to work it that way. But I think if there was a MIDI CC learn option here, I've got literally 8 buttons on my MIDI keyboard right here. I could literally just be dubbing like King Tubbies, you know what I'm saying, and work it that way. And I think with that, it would give me a more tactile approach to filtering and to making dub effects and things like that without having to manually go in and automate. But having said that, it's no great shake still, but I just think it would be a lot more easier on the control system within my MIDI keyboards, to give my MIDI keyboard something to do and to make the sounds more individual to me based on my controlling physically, as opposed to using a mouse to control the rotary control knobs. Anyway, it's with that I'm going to bring you back to the studio. And here we are, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, brothers and sisters, the second half of our double header feature coming from Soundfingers, and this plugin is called the Heritage Organ, and it is, as the title of the plugin suggests, it is an organ with a whole lot of heritage behind it, with a very, very noticeable difference. Once you click on the edit instrument portion of your DAW, you will see the plugin is as follows. Even though it's called Heritage Organ, it's definitely got a modern feel to the interface, in my opinion, but it still retains the integrity of the sound of classic organs, i.e. the Hammond, etc., with the Leslie boxes and everything else that makes up those types of organs that gives you that vintage classic sound. Now, it can be argued that some organs sound better than others, and some organs have the original features of the original organs, but it's not about what people see when you're playing a plugin, it's about what you hear and the ease that will give you a whole lot of creativity within it. Just to go into the plugin real quick, as you notice, there are no stops. You can't see any stops within the plugin whatsoever. All right, so they basically dispense with that, but I think they've given a more easier way to navigate in selecting the different type of tone and colors that you want for your organ sound. All right, so let's just go into the interface going in a clockwise direction. Okay, so at the top left, you have got this button here. It has got the title and who it's registered to and blah, blah, blah. And it's got the contact page and the website that you can link up and try out their other instruments that they've got on the website. All right, so that's basically that. In the top middle, you've got the preset selection, and right now the preset is initialized. All right, so it's in its basic state. All right, but when you click on here, you've got 6 preset menus, and within each preset menu you've got all of these sub presets within it. All right, so that's the atmosphere, blues and rock, you got church, you got funk and soul, you got reggae, and you have special. But I'm not even going to go into any of these presets at all. I'm going to go back into the initialized state of the plugin, going underneath the top section in a clockwise direction. On the top left, you have got basically the rotary settings, which is basically the cone that spins around in the box that gives you that stereo widening effect, for want of a better description. On the top right hand corner, you've got the filter section. Where you see this icon here with the dot, it has another section behind it. So when you click on that, you have the EQ section. All right, so let's go back to the filter section. So you have the LFO, you have the Q setting, which I kind of described what that was in the Dub SPL4 plugin before, and the level of the frequency. And in the middle left, you have the phaser, which basically gives you the frequency and the rate of phasing, the low frequency oscillator, and the wet and dry switch here. And in the middle right, you have the reverb. So you've got the dampness of the reverb, the width of the reverb, the size of the reverb, and the wet and dry switch for the reverb. And it's got the same icon here that you can literally just click on and switch from reverb to delay. So it will give you delay as well. In between the left and right switches of the time and feedback controls, in the delay section, you have a black dot, which is basically the link button. So if you want to operate the two together, you keep it on the black. And with the delay, you have basically quarter note double, quarter note triple, etc, etc, etc. All right, so that will basically give you the delay timing. If you want them to be different to each other, independent of each other, you click it, so the black circle will be split in half, and that way you can operate the channels independent of each other. So it works the same way for the feedback. The filter, you have the high pass and the low pass filter, and you have the wet and dry controls there. So at the near bottom, this is where things get a little bit tasty. So you have, from left to right, you have the global section. In the middle, you have the tone shifter section, and on the right, you have the master section. Within the global section, you have got the different type of waveforms that you can choose. So you've got a sine wave, triangle wave, sawtooth wave, and a square wave. All right, and another 3 variations of the waveforms that you can basically select here. And next to that, you have the detune, where it basically detunes certain voices within the organ sound that you have customized for yourself. And I think the percussion is the key click sound that is generated. Above that, you've got the number of voices that you can have within this section here. So you got 1 voice, 2 voices, 3 voices. Yeah, so basically 3 voices, all right, per note, I do believe. And in the middle, you have the tone shifter, which gives you bass, treble, and an odd section. Now, I don't really know what the odd section does, but I'm sure I'm going to find out soon with another feature that's on the plugin, which I think is great. Moving forward to the right-hand side, you have the cabinet select, where you have 12 different types of cabinet, all right? Now, underneath that, you got the drive, which is basically the saturation. And next to that, you have the wet and dry mix of the cabinet coupled with the drive, all right? And then you have the master volume. Underneath that, you've got the split keys here. The keys that are in black, those are basically the bass keys. And the keys that are in white, they're more or less the regular keys. Just under here, you have the question mark. Click on it, it's got the toggle help. So when you go over each control, it tells you what the control does. So select the waveform, detunes each voice, set the percussion level, set the bass section complexity. The more you push the slider, the more harmonics you get, etc, etc, etc. All right, so it will basically hold your hand as you're trying to customize your sound, which I think is great. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's go into the plugin by way of playing a sample of the plugin. All right, so basically this is what I've got played as a basic 2-chord line, as it were. And that's pretty much it. All right, so without further ado, let's go into the controls section. So what I'm going to do with the rotary section of the organ, I've actually set it to wet, and I'm going to alter the rate, the split, the width, and the amount, just to give you a fair idea of what the rotary does. All right, so here we go. So it's moving from left to right very slowly. So now I'm going to change the rate, and it's going to be much quicker when it goes from left to right. Okay, so basically, so you get what the rotary does to affect the sound of the organ. All right, so I'm going to go across the section now and just basically move each button up and down so you can get an idea as to what it does as a whole within that section. Okay, so basically that's what the rotary section does. All right, next to that we have got the filter, and the filter basically has an LFO, a low frequency oscillator within it, and also a Q control and a frequency control. Now what Matt told me was that the LFO is basically synced up to the rotary, because if the LFO basically works independent of the rotary, you're just going to get a mess when it comes to the oscillation of the rotary sound as a whole. It's just going to sound all over the place. It would just sound like one big mess. So as a compromise, the filter section is basically synced up to the rotary. So what you need to do to actually change the LFO is to change the rotary. You can't change the LFO with the rotary being where it is, if that makes any sense. Anyway, the Q section basically does what I explained in the last plugin, and the frequency is self-evident. So let's just play that again and see what that does. And I'll tell you something for free, that you won't get that on any Hammond organ. You will not find that on any Hammond organ. So that is a nice addition to that. So in the middle left, we have got the phaser section. Let's see what the phaser section basically does. Okay, so it's pretty much the same kind of process as the filter, but obviously with a more phased effect. All right, so moving on swiftly to the middle right section. So we have reverb and we have delay. So let's just pick a C chord. Alter the size. Okay, alter the width. Yeah, so it's more or less narrowing the stereo field of the reverb. Okay, moving forward to the middle right, and we are going to feature the delay section. So let's see how we can alter the sound with the delay. Let me just bring it up somewhat, make it more wet, and then play the C chord and see how we can affect the sound that way. Okay, here we go. Bring the feedback up a little bit. Okay, so let's alter the timing of the echo. Wow, it goes on forever. And next to that, you've got the high pass and the low pass filter, and also the wet dry control. All right, so underneath that we have got the waveform control, the global waveform control, and in the middle you got the tone shifter, and you got the cabinet select master section. You're kind of hearing what the global section does in terms of the waveform as it basically stands, so I don't need to really explain that any further. However, the tone shifter, what I want to do now, I want to actually play the 2-chord sustain and kind of mess around with the tone shifter so you can get an idea of the color of the sound that you want to customize for your organ. So here we go. Okay, so we're gonna alter the treble of the tone. So they're basically giving you more harmonics on top of that particular frequency. So with the odd is either going to give you more bass to the quota of bass and treble, and vice versa, more treble to the quota of treble and bass that you've got on here. All right, so let's just work on that. I know it sounds a bit Vincent Price, doesn't it? But anyway, moving on. Right, so next to that, we have got the cabinet select. Like I said, I think there's 12 of them. You've got the drive control, the cabinet mix, and the volume. So I'm just going to basically operate the drive because that gives you a little bit more saturation to your organ sound. All right, so let's just play it again and see what we get as we turn the drive up. Turn it up right now and yeah, there's a lot of saturation up in there. Really dirty, really dirty. And next to that, you've got the mix, which is basically the wet and dry of the cabinet select, and you've got the master volume. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is pretty much that. And you know, ladies and gentlemen, I cannot leave you without giving you two examples of heritage organ at work within two pieces of music. One being a modern type of music, the other being reggae music. Just to let you know that each piece of music features other instruments, namely the skank and also bass tone, also made by Soundfingers. Enjoy. Come, let's paint up the town tonight, yeah. No if, but some maybe, yeah. Just put on your best dress tonight, yeah. Yeah, tonight, yeah. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, brothers and sisters, my review of the Dub SPL4 and also the Heritage organ. Both available via the Soundfingers website. I'm going to leave all the links, all the relevant links for those instruments and also the other instruments in the description box below. I hope that you enjoyed the content that has been on offer. If you like the content thus far, and if you learned something about the instruments and all of the plugins that I feature on my channel, please leave a like, subscribe, all that wonderful stuff to keep my channel going. And with that, I'm gonna bid you guys adieu, and as always, you done know the coup. Full appreciation for your appreciation. So until we link up next time, people, I'm out of here. Maganski, laters. Lloyd Brown, plugging of the week.